Yeah. Before I introduce General Joulwan, I'd like to note that we have a group of 15 Eastern Europeans with us today from the newly independent states on a internship, and 9 of them are journalists. Welcome, please. Our briefing today is another update from General Joulwan on Operation Joint Endeavor. It is on the record. He has an opening statement and, of course, some charts. Generals can't talk without charts, as we all know. Right, sir?
Or their hands.
Or their hands. All yours, sir.
Thank you very much. And I would like to just say a few remarks and then answer whatever questions you might have. I think at the outset, we have just gone through a very, I think, historic election in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And for those of us who have watched this theater for some time, for me, it's very important to go back a year from today, September 1995. We were carrying out bombing operations in Bosnia. There had been, in the previous months, the fall of Zepa and Srebrenica. We had the marketplace shelling, which killed innocent civilians in the end of August. And then we began an air operation with the approval of the North Atlantic Council. So within that year, to me, it's very remarkable what IFOR has done, what the international community has done. In the Dayton Peace Agreement that was reached, a Bosnian implementation force was deployed in December, and in the last 9 months have separated the forces, transferred land, taken weapons and put them by the warring factions into storage areas that are now being monitored, and demobilized the force. And we now have just had elections. So quite a bit has been done. And as we look back on this year, I think it's important to recognize all of that. And who would have think we would have come this far? And if I may transition to use, no. I knew I should have done it myself. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Yeah. I wanted to use this because I think it's important. This is the concept of operation for Operation Joint Endeavor. I've used this with you before to sort of show you where we are. In December, we trained the force, identified it, and deployed it. And in January, the implementation force entered Bosnia-Herzegovina, took command of the theater, and I think set the right tone for compliance by the former warring factions. Then we went into an implementation phase up to about April, or D plus 120 days, and at that time we separated the forces by 4 and then 10 kilometers, and as I mentioned, had them move their heavy weapons into storage areas, which we are now monitoring, and also demobilized their forces. We then got into this very, which I thought, challenging phase for a military force. How do you transition to peace? How do you continue to execute these tasks and try to assist within your capabilities the civilian organizations, the High Representative, the High Commissioner for Refugees, the OSCE on elections, etc. But that's what we're trying to do, and to stay within mission. And as you remember, can I just flip that top one around? I laid these out for you on the last time we talked, and I said these are the conditions we would need for success. And I mention all of this because this was our focus for the implementation force from about April to the elections that were held on D plus 270 or 14 September. And we concentrated on all of these. Some were accomplished completely, some not to the degree we would like, but the key is we concentrated on all of these as we tried to stay within this mission of supporting task and still carry out our primary military task. As a result of that, I think we have seen the elections take place. I would particularly point out the great work being done by OSCE and the assistance we have given to OSCE to help them manage the great logistics, burden that the elections brought to bear. And as a result of that, we've had an election. The free and fairness of it will be determined by international agencies and truly by the people themselves. But I think IFOR's role in all of that has been significant. Let me, if I can, to show you one of the things that we did, which was extremely intensive manpower. These were voter routes agreed by the parties, the three parties, their interior ministers, and we were able to open up these roads across the international or the inter-entity boundary line for people to cross. There was freedom of movement for individuals over the last several months. This was to go back to their home villages, which has been a point of contention. This was a beginning, and we hope we could build on this, and the parties themselves will realize that people can go back to their homes where they once lived. That is going to take time. Here was an example of how IFOR could help in working with the International Peace Task Force and the parties themselves to allow freedom of movement across the inter-entity boundary line. And finally, let me conclude, and then I'll take your questions. When we now look to the future, here are the elections that were held. I have been told that there will be a decision made on whether municipal elections will be held. When that decision is made, we'll get a date. One of the options being looked at is that it would be held this year before the end of the mandate for me, which is 20 December 1996. When this date is given, my recommendation is going to be that we have limited force reductions until that date because it has taken a great deal of effort by IFOR to be able to provide a secure environment for the national elections. Every indication is that the municipal elections, where we're going to have, again, about 4,500 polling places, many more people returning to vote. It will be probably done in very adverse weather conditions. For all of those reasons, our initial estimate by our commanders on the ground is that we need to maintain our current capabilities. Once those elections are held, the intent is to begin force reductions to exactly what I told you a few months ago, to where we're going to have a capable force. And I'm not sure what that capable force will be, but our mission goes through the 20th. And we will maintain a capable force to carry out our mission. And then, as I said the last time we spoke, that force will be withdrawn over the next several weeks following the 20th of December. But that is what it's going to look like. Limited reductions, at least that's my recommendation, until municipal elections, and then more force reductions and maintaining a capable force throughout our mission time, which is the 20th of December. So this is sort of a background that I'd like to give you, and I'll be glad to take any questions you might have at this time, Charlie.
General, Secretary Christopher today praised the results of the election, saying it was a triumph for democracy. But he also said again, he conceded again, if you will, that there's a need for an international presence there beyond the elections. In fact, into next year, although he doesn't say what that is. Bokarua said today in Bosnia that there will be a need for a force, a military force after IFOR, and Germany wants to take part in it. Portillo has said virtually the same thing. Well, is there going to be a need for a military force there, and have you made any decision on it?
Well, that decision will be taken by our political authorities. And there will be, I think, intense discussion and debate on that. And that decision, once it's reached, will be conveyed to me, and we will take whatever action is required. But the political decision has not yet been made.
But certainly we'll look to you for a recommendation.
Yes.
And what does it look like now?
Well, again, it's premature, because what needs to happen here, we have to see the results of this election. What happens in this period, you have to make an assessment. In fact, we have to make an assessment in order to say what is a capable force. So what I'm trying to say here, I think it's premature to start giving numbers even for the end of our mission. We're trying to do that in a very professional way, but we have to see the results of the national elections, the institutions that are going to be built, any reaction by any of the entities to the decisions. All of that needs to be factored in. And so, to be very candid and very clear, I have told the commanders, you focus on the next 3 months. Don't start wandering away to talk about what's going to happen next year when we have no political guidance for next year. I am very much concerned about the next 3 months, and the commanders are going to focus on the next 3 months, which will be a very difficult, tense time within Bosnia.
But General, isn't it true that military planning is going on for a possible follow-on mission, and isn't it time to, I know you keep saying it's premature, but isn't it time to fess up and with your U.S. hat and tell the American people that there's a very strong likelihood that U.S. troops will be on the ground in Bosnia next year as part of a follow-on mission?
It is premature to say that. There is no political decision. There is no political guidance to say that. So it would be premature for me to say it.
But rule again says that if there is a follow-on mission, as others have said, the United States will have to be part of that. Would you deny that?
That again is a decision that our political authorities here in the United States must make. What I have been given in the mandate I got from the North Atlantic Council is a 1-year mandate that ends on 20 December 1996. That is where my focus is. That is where our attention is right now. And I have to make sure the troops don't get confused by the rhetoric. The guidance I've been given is clear, and we're going to focus on our mission between now and the 20th December, yes.
Is it possible that something could go awry with these municipal elections and that your mission won't be complete on December 20th?
We're going to have to see. But I would tell you that the mission that we have right now goes through 20 December. But you're very right to say that many things could happen, to include through the municipal elections. So it is, to me, prudent to focus on the here and now. And I think it's important for our troops to understand that we still have 3 months remaining in our mandated mission. And that's where I've been focusing their attention. And I think it's extremely important that we continue to do so. Ed, you had a...
Is the reason that you won't concede the need for a follow-on force politically driven?
No. I think that what we have to remember is that I think there's always been thought there'd be some international structure that would be there after our 12 months. What that will be, or how that will be, or what the context of that will be, that is up to the international community to say what that is going to be. And once we get that guidance, then we can give some recommendations on it. Yes.
General, on your concept of operations chart under the final
Yeah.
phase 5, one of the items is hand over residual commitments to civilian organizations.
Right. That is what I'm trying to say. We always had a thought that something would remain in Bosnia. The civilian side must continue. The reconstruction, all of that has to continue, I think, for some time to come.
Residual commitments means, I'm not sure I understand what residual commitments means, though.
Well, part of that has to do with reconstruction and the rehabilitation of the country, and that is what is going to be taken up by civilian organizations, UNHCR, OSCE, the World Bank, and other institutions like that. Yes.
General, how confident are you that on December 20th the mission will be completed satisfactorily?
Well, right now, that is the instructions we've been given, and I think that we will do the best we can do to create the conditions in Bosnia-Herzegovina to maximize our time there. And I think we've got some challenges in the post-election period to be able to provide a secure environment for the new government to take hold, for these institutions to develop, and to give some time for this new government in this new country to function, and we will do that.
General, the troops that are coming in from Germany that would be part of the covering force for the withdrawal of the U.S. troops, could they form the spearhead of a follow-on force if that decision were to be made?
That is a speculative question I don't want to get into. I will tell you they're coming in because of a very good reason, and that is to cover the redeployment of our forces. So we have troops that are focused on one mission at a time. One force is going to withdraw, and the other is going to cover that withdrawal. Yes?
I just need you to clarify the priorities. You said that you recommended limited reductions until the municipal election. Of course, the mission ends. What happens if the elections aren't? I think that's what Suzanne was getting at. What if the elections don't happen by the 20th? What do you do? Does your
Well,
recommendation...
that's why we need the decision. If they're going to be held at some other time, then I need to know that. I'm assuming that the initial discussions that they were going to be held this year, I have to plan for that. If they're not held here, we will then make another decision.
And when you say that you don't have political guidance at this point to decide whether you go next year, are you talking because of there isn't a presidential election and that would be your political guidance?
I'm talking for the North Atlantic Council, NATO. Yes.
There's sort of that empty delta there about the drawdown of the capable force to the...
Here.
Yes, the removal. Just in general, once you are able to take that force out, what timeline are you looking for in terms of...
Again, it depends on what that capable force looks like, but I have said the last time here, several weeks. I would say that what I didn't know last time was the possibility of this. I think this will skew us a little bit to the right, and I think we'll have several weeks before we get the force out. Yes.
Is it your opinion that Bosnia can be secure without a follow-on force?
I'm not sure. You mean...
Do you think it would be stabilized enough for them to be on their own without a follow-on force?
Let's see what happens as a result of these elections. If we get some feeling of how the post-election period will be, I think we'll be able to answer that question better. Yes.
Different topic or
Yeah.
the same topic?
Well, I just wanted to ask you, but if this force is withdrawn, if there's a decision in the future to have some future force, would it be a completely separate force from this? Would all these troops leave and then a new force come in? Or is there any possibility that this IFOR mission could be extended?
My instructions that I have right now is that the IFOR mission under Dayton goes through the 20th of December 1996. I think then what would have to happen is that the international community would have to express its will, and from that determine what if any, what that follow-on force will be and what it would be consisted of. Yes.
General, can you explain why it was deemed necessary to change the commander of IFOR for a third time this year?
Well, what we're doing in trying to bring in another headquarters is for the same reason that we mentioned on covering force. I think it's very important that in a redeployment that a headquarters doesn't try to cover its own movement out. So for those reasons, we're bringing in a headquarters that can focus on the redeployment. And what we intend to do is to bring that in, which was approved today by the North Atlantic Council, and it will be part of Allied Forces Central Europe, the Central Land Cent, as we call it, and we'll form a headquarters around that. That will come in around the October time frame and cover the withdrawal of both AV South and the ARC. It will take over the headquarters responsibilities and for however long it takes to redeploy the force.
And where will it be? Is that in Sarajevo?
It will be in Sarajevo. Yes.
Putting on your U.S. hat again, the Bosnian mission obviously has been somewhat unconventional for the Army, U.S. Army. I thought maybe you could just sort of give me your opinion on how it's transformed the Army and how...
Well, let me just give you my personal opinion. We have approached this as missions are missions and operations are operations. But we use our doctrine and we use our proven techniques for this operation as we did as we do for any other. I think it's important here on the U.S. side and also for many of the other nations where it talked about training the force. We trained this force very hard for this operation. And we used our doctrine and we did our troop-to-task missions. And therefore, our soldiers, I feel, are very well trained and informed on what to expect. And so when we talk about these sort of operations that we're in, I think the doctrine applies. And as a result of that, our soldiers are aware of what is expected of them. So they are well trained and ready for the mission at hand. Yes,
General, do you see any trend at all that these people are willing to live in peace now?
Again, that's part of this. That's part of this assessment.
But I mean, to date, forget the elections. To date, do you see any trend at all? These people.
I will tell you, my feeling when I talk to many of these people is they're tired of war. Many of them do want to live together. At least there's some hope. And let us not prejudge too much. The fact that we did have people cross over to vote in the thousands was a good sign. And they did have an impact on the outcome of the election. I think let us wait to see step by step what's going to happen in the municipal elections. Ambassador Frowick and others in OSCE have done great work in trying to create these conditions. Between here, a new government will be formed. Let's see what those institutions look like. And let's try to rather than prejudge it, try to assist and help them on this path to try to create one country called Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I think, let's see what happens. If there can be some economic development with this, as well as political development, what we can do, what I think our troops can feel very proud of, is that we have created an environment for this election to take place. Now I would hope that the parties themselves, who have the ultimate responsibility here, will find a way to work together for the betterment of all their people.
Could you comment on some of the, 2 more questions. Could you comment on some of the tasks that haven't quite been able to be checked off yet? Specifically, for instance, the question of arms control and getting a better balance of arms. That seems like something that is not going to be resolved by the time you leave in December 20th.
As I said, some of those are the tasks that will go on, even in Dayton, would go on for much longer. So those institutions of the Vienna group, the OSCE group under Ambassador Ida, will continue for some time to come. And the mechanisms for all of that are being worked now. But I share your concern on arms control. I think it's something that needs to happen. There should be a build down of forces. There are too many arms, too many heavy weapons. But that is part of this dialogue that I think has to go on in these residual tasks that must be accomplished by civilian agencies. Yes.
What do you see in the next 3 months as the biggest challenges to IFOR? You mentioned there were quite a few left.
My biggest concern all the time is soldier complacency, that they keep their focus on the mission. That's why I don't want to look too far ahead to our soldiers. They must focus on the mission. This is a very delicate time. We're getting into some bad weather, and this is a very delicate time. With municipal elections coming up, we're going to, again, 4,500 polling places, and I think that they have to keep maintaining their focus on the mission. And as we bring these rotation of forces, and I might add to some of the nations or journalists from other nations back there how appreciative we are of the contributions that are being made by over 30 nations, many of them from your countries that have joined us in this effort. We're very pleased to have Russia join us, for example, the Ukraine and others that have joined us in this operation, and it's very much appreciated.
General, in the past week, a big issue has been force protection, particularly the criticisms contained in General Downing's report.
Yes.
You've been able to maintain your mission without having any great problems such as occurred in Saudi Arabia. Can you tell us why you think that is? Because some of the suggestions in that report were troubling, that it was not just in one service, but almost military-wide, that there wasn't enough attention being paid to the issue.
Well, it's difficult. I don't want to comment on another command's region, but in what we have done, force protection for all of us in the military has been a key issue. In Bosnia, we have made it a multinational issue, and it has been high in our priority, and it's part of our commander's guidance, and we watch it all the time. The challenge is when you're dealing with 30-plus nations to try to instill this sense of urgency in what you're doing. We try to do it through our intelligence channels as well as through our command channels to make sure we have the best information possible. And we're working that all the time. Yes?
General, on the conditions for success chart, just like arms control, return of refugees is listed there. I'm wondering if that's something you thought would be further along than it is.
Again, I think it's in, if I can, as I said, in this phase, it was a very delicate phase because what we were doing was going from purely military tasks to what Dayton calls in Annex 1A supporting tasks within our capabilities. And that's what we were trying to do. For the return of refugees, for example, we coordinated with the UNHCR. They're the principal civilian organization responsible, just like OSCE for elections. And so what we tried to do was work with them. They had, for example, 4 pilot programs, 4 villages. They were trying to get some sort of ethnic mix, if you want to call it that, within the villages. And we are trying to provide the secure environment for that to happen. They ran, which I thought was a very good effort, buses across the inter-entity boundary line. And we tried to assist there to provide a secure environment for that to take place, and that was extremely successful, not just for the elections, but for the months leading up to the elections. Step by step, these are, to me, very real accomplishments that who would have thought a year ago we would be at this stage now. So clearly much more has to be done, but clearly much has been done. And there's an opportunity here for a better life for the people of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and I'm very proud that IFOR has had a role to play in doing that.
Have you proved the critics wrong?
I think what we have done so far is to demonstrate that the flexibility of the NATO alliance. We have demonstrated that there is political will and political cohesion and solidarity within the alliance, that they have committed forces and resources to try to help a very troubled region of Europe. We still have 3 months to go on our mandate, and we're going to focus on that and then let history record how we did. I'm very proud of the troops, and if you would tell the families and the mothers and fathers here in the United States that that their sacrifice is very much appreciated by me, and that their sons and daughters are doing great work to bring peace to Bosnia-Herzegovina.
General, let me just make one thing clear. You said that you would recommend that an adequate force,
Capable force, yes.
capable force remain there through the municipal elections, to start the municipal elections. If those of January or February, that would still be your recommendation?
No, let me be clear. No, let me be clear. That's not what I said. I said if the elections are going to be taking place between now and the end of our mandate, which I've been told may occur in November for the municipal elections, I haven't any firm date, then I would have to plan for limited reductions here. What I told you the last time is that this would be a steeper curve. But if there's going to be municipal elections between now and the end of our mandate, my recommendation would be that drawdown would be limited. So I'm only talking between now and the 20th of December. Well, thank you all for your time and efforts, and thank you for your support of the troops. And as always, it's one team, one mission in all of this.